They ain't at work yet. That's true. Good job. Appreciate it. See, man, if you make a question, just change.
I got to rise.
Doug does.
Because I was letting my light shine.
Oh, there you go. That's very illuminating. Lighten the mood, would you?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Well, I'm ringing. A little bit. There you go. That'll work. Okay, Jonah. But we're going to take a little bit of digression about Jonah and talk a little bit about a little history. We're in Chronicles. Chronicles and Kings, there's a lot of parallels in there. I picked it out of Chronicles. We could have picked it out of Kings, 2 Kings as well. But a little bit of this is perspective on Jonah. You need to have the perspective why he had the view that he did that drove him to try to go to Tarshish as opposed to going to Nineveh. So, talk a little bit about this one. At that time, King Ahaz sent word to the kings of Assyria for help. For the Edomites had come again and attacked Judah and led away captives. The Philistines had also invaded the cities of the lowland of the Negev of Judah and had taken Beth Shemesh, Alajan, Gedroth, and Soko with its villages, Timnah with its villages, and Gizmo, which is an interesting name for a city, with its villages, and they all had settled there. So you've got different people, the Philistines, you've got the Edomites, all starting to filter in to Judah and or Israel. For the Lord had humbled Judah because of Ahaz, king of Israel, for he had brought about a lack of restraint in Judah and was very unfaithful to the Lord. Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came against him and afflicted him instead of strengthening him. Although Ahaz took a portion out of the house of the Lord and out of the palace of the king and of the princes and gave it to the king of Assyria, it did not help him. So, which kingdom was Ahaz the king of? The southern or the northern? Southern kingdom, right? So, that one usually is the one that was trying to be more aligned with God than the northern kingdom. Remember, they got the split between Jeroboam and Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the son of Solomon. Jeroboam was not. He was just kind of out there, and he took over the northern kingdoms, and the southern kingdoms, which was Judah and Benjamin, went to Rehoboam. Well, we're several generations past that now, but Ahaz is one of his descendants. So where's Assyria in relation to Judah, geographically? Up north. It's north of it, okay? So what kind of a king was Tiglath-Pileser? Remember, you've got King Ahaz that didn't go to God for help. The man from Judah did not go to God for help, went to make an alliance with an Assyrian king. Paid him money. Gold and everything like that he took out of the house of God, took out of his palaces, and took out from his princes. And we'll call him Tig. Tig took the money But what did he do? Huh?
He still treated them bad.
Well, he flipped. Instead of helping him, in other words, helping him drive out the Edomites, help drive out the Philistines, make it safe for him, he said, I'm going to take another piece out of your hide. So, he was a pretty cruel king. He was greedy, couldn't be trusted, only interested in one thing, expanding his empire. At this time, there's two big empires in the world. What are those two empires? Kind of staying away from each other, but they're two big ones. Anybody know? One's Assyria, obviously. The other one's Babylon, Babylonian kingdom. Those are the two big dogs in the world at this particular time. So that's pretty significant. In Isaiah, because that's where you find talking about it, in the year that the commander came to Ashdod, when Sargon, the king of Assyria, sent him, he fought against Ashdod and captured it. At that time, the Lord spoke through Isaiah, the son of Amos, saying, Go and loosen the sackcloth from your hips and take your sandals off your feet. And he did so, going naked and barefoot. Then the Lord said, Even as my servant Isaiah has gone naked and barefoot for 3 years as a sign and a symbol against Egypt and Cush, so the king of Assyria will lead away the captives of Egypt and the exiles of Cush, young and old, naked and barefoot, with buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. Then they will be terrified and ashamed because of Cush, their hope, and Egypt, their pride. So the inhabitants of this coastland will say on that day, Behold, such is your hope, where we fled for help to be saved from the king of Assyria, and now we ourselves to escape. So, where's Cush? Anybody got an idea where Cush is? South. Okay. It's south of Egypt. It's in the Sudan. So it's in Africa. It's northern Africa, but it's south of Egypt. So if somebody's running away from Assyria, which is to the north of Israel, they've gone as far as going south of Egypt to avoid being taken in. So they've gone pretty far south. They've gone through Egypt into another land. So why did the people flee? Huh?
They left because they were treated badly.
Well, they thought they were going to be safe. They thought, okay, you know, Sargon's another one of the kings. He's after Tig. But Sargon has gone in and he says, I can take whatever I want. Where did he go? How did he get from Assyria to Egypt? What path did he take? Right through Israel. Took everybody back, and everybody as he went down or came back, oh, I want that one too. Took whoever he wants. He's another Assyrian king. Let's go to the next one. It's fun to say this guy's name. After these acts of faithfulness, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and invaded Judah and besieged the fortified cities and intended to break into them for himself. Now when Hezekiah saw Sennacherib had come and that he intended to wage war against Jerusalem, he decided with his officers and his warriors to cut off the supply of water from the springs which were outside of the city. And they helped him. So many people assembled and stopped up the springs and the stream which flowed through the region, saying, Why should the kings of Assyria come and find abundant water? And he resolutely set to work and rebuilt all of the wall that had been broken down and erected towers on it, and built another wall and strengthened the Millo in the city of David, and made weapons and shields in great numbers. Third king of Assyria. So what kind of a king was Sennacherib? Yeah, just like the others. Okay? Didn't have any regard much for human life. Was interested in just conquering everything he can and taking people as prisoners, as slaves, selling them off or using them or whatever he needed to do. But he's the same kind of a king. He's an Assyrian king. You kind of see a pattern here as far as the Assyrian kings. And what we have in the scriptures is where they just did what they did to Israel. Well, it was going on to the rest of parts of the world too. The Babylonians, they were doing the same thing. They were equally cruel. They were equally vicious. But this is the third king that's talked about. So who's the king of Judah and what kind of a king is he? You guys are quieter than Sunday morning. Hezekiah. Good, bad. He real good. Okay. After you had Ahaz, he's quite a few people down as far as kings in Judah. By this time, Israel has been pretty much intermingled with all kinds of people. Matter of fact, one of the things that started with Tiglath-Pileser was the importing of thousands of his own people that are his subjects into a conquered region to go into that region to help convert it so it didn't try and fall back into the hands of the people that were there. He'd send thousands of people down there. And that's what we have, talks about in the New Testament, how they felt about the people in Samaria, which is part of the northern kingdom, was that got settled by the Assyrians. And you know how they regarded the people of Samaria. They looked down at them. They said, these people are just, we're not going to have anything to do with them. If they went from the southern part of Israel to the northern part of Israel, they went the long way around so they didn't have to go through Samaria. So that's how they felt about the people that had been influenced the Assyrians. You can imagine how they felt about the Assyrians. So, going on with this one, he appointed military officers, this is Hezekiah, over the people and gathered them together in the public square at the city gate. And he spoke encouragingly to them, saying, be strong and courageous, do not fear or be dismayed because of the king of Assyria, nor because of the hordes that are with him. For the one with us is greater than the one with him. With him only an arm of flesh, but with us the Lord of the God will help us and fight our battles. And the people relied on the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. So what did the people do how did he strengthen them? Sure, somewhere in there he told them maybe the story about David and Goliath. Okay, the Lord strengthened him. The Lord that strengthened when they fought the battles. Okay, against, there was 600 of them, there was 10,000 of someone else, and they win. So I'm sure he told them all those things. I'm going to move along. After this, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, sent his servants to Jerusalem while he was besieging Lachish, with all of his forces with him, against Hezekiah, king of Judah, and against all of Judah who were in Jerusalem, saying, this is what Sennacherib, king of Assyria, says. On what are you trusting that you are staying in Jerusalem under siege? So it's under siege because he rebuilt the walls. And they don't have any water outside, so they don't want this to last a long time outside because they don't have any way to really sustain what they're doing. Is Hezekiah now not misleading you to give yourselves over to die by hunger and by thirst, saying, the Lord our God will save us from the hand of the king of Assyria? How do you know Hezekiah told his people that? They probably had spies. It is not the same Hezekiah. Is this not the same Hezekiah who removed his high places and altars and said to Judah and Jerusalem, you shall worship before one altar, and on it you shall burn incense. Do you not know what I and my fathers have done to all the peoples of the lands? Were the gods of the nations of those lands at all able to save their land from my hand? Who was there among the gods of these nations which my fathers utterly destroyed, who could save his people from my hand? That your God would be able to save you from my hand? Now then, do not let Hezekiah deceive you or mislead you like this. And do not believe him, for no God or any nation or kingdom was able to save his people from my hand or from the hand of my fathers. How much less will your God save you from my hand? So what's Sennacherib trying to do?
Turn them against Hezekiah.
Turn him against Hezekiah, yeah. Throw him off the wall first and like that. He's not promising them any kind of benevolence. He's just saying, listen to me, don't listen to him. Nobody could withstand me. You think Jonah knew this story? Jonah's after Chronicles. Jonah knew this story. His servant spoke further against the Lord God and against his servant Hezekiah. He also wrote letters to insult the Lord God of Israel and to speak against him, saying, as the gods of the nations of the lands have not saved their people from my hand, so the God of Hezekiah will not save his people from my hand. So he kind of said, he went on that one over and over again. They called this out with a loud voice in the language of Judah to the people of Jerusalem who were on the wall, to frighten them and terrify them so they might take the city. They spoke of the God of Jerusalem as they did against the gods of the people of the earth, the work of human hands. So, with these words, what kind of an impression are they going to have? If you're following God, what kind of impression are you going to have with somebody who's speaking like this? Yeah, not much. This is a horrible person. So again, it's fixing in their mind what they think of the Assyrians and the Assyrian kings and what the Assyrians did. But King Hezekiah and Isaiah the prophet, son of Amos, prayed about this and called out to heaven for help. And the Lord sent an angel who destroyed every warrior, commander, and officer in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned in shame to his own land. And when he had entered the temple of God, of his God, some of his own sons killed him there with the sword. So the Lord saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and from the hand of all others, and guided them on every way, every side. And many were bringing gifts to the Lord at Jerusalem and valuable presents to Hezekiah, king of Judah. So thereafter he rose in the sight of all nations. So how did God respond to Hezekiah and Isaiah? That's a pretty powerful prayer. Both Isaiah and Hezekiah are praying.
He destroyed their enemies.
Yeah, he destroyed them, utterly destroyed them. So, where is the capital of the Assyria, where these three kings lived? Where's the capital of that whole empire? Huh? Is Nineveh. That is the capital of the Assyrian Empire. That is where those kings lived. That was where all that vile and all that nasty and all the slavery and all the killing, that was the capital. They had some beautiful, beautiful castles, if you could say, or whatever it was, because they had a lot of money they took in when they conquered lands. So here you have the Jews that have a frame of mind by what's in the scriptures and by what they experienced from Assyria, and the whole epicenter of that is Nineveh. So you kind of understand Jonah's perspective, don't you? A little bit more, hopefully, and the fact that they hated those people. Those people were horrible to them. They just soon destroy them completely. And Jonah knew that. And that's how he felt about it. So, moving on to Jonah. That sets the stage for Jonah's frame of mind. How am I doing? Not too bad. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, I think, saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and cry out against it, because their wickedness has come up before me." Kind of wonder, is You mean they weren't wicked enough before? But Jonah got up to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So he went down to Joppa, found a ship that was going to Tarshish, paid the fare, and boarded it to go with him to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. That's his plan. So why is God going to destroy Nineveh? They got really, they were rotten. They got really rotten. Okay, they're kind of in decline now too, a little bit. Okay, Babylonian Empire is beginning to pick up now, and the Assyrian Empire is not quite as strong. But as bad as they were, they got worse. And God says, okay, I'm finally going to do something about it. And it's been centuries. It hadn't been days, it's been centuries been going on. So why did he go to Tarshish? Why did Jonah do that? He wanted to get far away from Nineveh. So which way is Joppa from where Jonah is? Jonah's in Judah. Which way is Joppa? It's on the coast. It definitely isn't west, because you'd be in the Med. It isn't in the east, so you got two to choose from. South. It's south. Joppa's a little bit south. I think I got one more question. Where's the futility of what Jonah's trying to do? Yeah, he says, I'm going to try and run away from God. It's like, you didn't really think that through, did you? Because you can't run away from him. So I got a map. There's Tarshish, southern Spain. Joppa, let me do this. Of course, Joppa's here a little bit south. Jerusalem's right here in this area. And up here, it's inland. Nineveh is not on the coast. It's actually a 3-day walk. Nineveh's up here to the north. It's in Turkey, present-day Turkey. So he wants to go from the standpoint of the end of the world. That's the end of the world. He's going to go as far as he can. That's his plan. And maybe God isn't there. Not a good plan. So, continuing on, first chapter. However, the Lord hurled a great wind on the sea. There's a great storm on the sea, so that the ship was about to break up. Then the sailors became afraid, and every man cried out to his God. And they hurled the cargo which was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone below into the stern of the ship and lain down and fallen sound asleep. So the captain approached him, saying, "How is it that you are sleeping? Get up. Call on your God. Perhaps your God will be concerned about us, that we will not perish." So who caused the storm, or what caused the storm? God did, okay? And the Med can get pretty rough, but Mediterranean Sea. It's bigger than you might think. It's pretty deep, but it can get rough, but it got really rough. The Lord really stirred it up. And they were worried they were going to their ship was going to get broken up, and they were all going to drown. So what was Jonah doing? He was sleeping. So what does that question the captain asked Jonah give an idea of what that captain was? Did I ask that question in too difficult a way to figure out what I'm asking? Was he a pagan or Jew? He is pagan. Okay, so that's who he's hitched himself with to get away from this. Is he's running away from everything in order to not have to go to those evil, rotten people in Nineveh. And each man said to his mate, "Come, let's cast lots so that we may find out on whose account this catastrophe has struck us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, "Tell us now, on whose account has this catastrophe struck us? What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country? And from what people are you?" So he said to them, "I am a Hebrew, in the fear of the Lord God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." So what did the crew suspect that caused the storm?
Somebody.
Upset at God.
Huh?
Somebody had upset at God.
Somebody upset a God. Somebody did something. Somebody messed up. Let's figure out who it is. So what was their first question they asked him? To put it in our terms. Yeah. What'd you do? What did you do? Which would be a logical first question. Of course, they're doing this as the ship is getting slapped all around them like that. Stuff's flying all over the place. They're trying to figure out how they're going to stay alive. So how did Jonah answer? Yeah, he says, "I'm a Jew." So they knew he was from Judah. "I'm a Hebrew."
He says, "I fear the Lord God of heaven."
Yeah, he does. But he didn't mind him. He didn't do what he was told. Then the man became extremely afraid, and they said to him, "How could he do this?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord because he told them. So they said to him, "What should we do to you so that the sea will become calm for us?" For the sea was becoming increasingly stormy. And he said to them, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will become calm for you, because I know that on account of me, this great storm has come upon you." However, the men rowed desperately to return to land, but they could not, because the sea was becoming even stormier against them. So what was their response when they figured out he was fleeing from the Lord?
What can we do?
Yeah. What can we do? So when he answered the question, "You got to throw me in the sea," then what'd they do? Row harder, boys. They didn't do it. Were they making any headway? Anybody ever been out in rough seas? You have? You were in the Navy, weren't you? Yeah, you were in rough seas. I've been out in a rough sea in a small boat. That was probably a big boat you were in. It was a ship.
100-foot waves.
100-foot waves. That's scary. I was out in a smaller boat. It was about 18 feet long. Me and some of my buddies. And just a kind of an idea, the boat was a boat we picked up cheap, believe it or not. But it had some quirks. The throttle didn't work where you steered it. So one of us had to sit on the transom and turn the accelerator on the outboard motor while the other one steered. So I was sitting on the back of the transom and we started hitting tough waters. And I remember sitting on there like this, and this is the back of the boat, and I'd look up and I'd see a wave, and we were between the waves. So I was looking at the top of the wave here, right there in front of me, and give it a gas a little bit in order to get out of its way a little bit until it came down, and then we went up on the next wave because the waves were coming in faster than we could go in the boat. So I kind of know what that group felt like a little bit when you're looking at something like that and those waves come in. So why do you think everything they've done is futile?
It's all about getting Jonah to go to Nineveh.
Yeah, God has a plan, and he's going to get them there. Whether he likes it or not, God is going to get them to Nineveh. I bet nobody had an idea just how he was going to do it, though. Especially if he threw him in the water. Then they cried out to the Lord and said, "We earnestly pray, O God, do not let us perish on account of this man's life, and do not put innocent blood on us. For you, Lord, have done as you pleased." So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea stopped its raging. Then the man became extremely afraid of the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. And the Lord designated a great fish, not a whale, to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the stomach of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Huh? Yeah. So, what did the crew do before they threw Jonah in the sea? They prayed to his God. These were pagans, but they prayed to his God. He said, if that God's this powerful, please, if he's innocent, don't put the blood on us. Please don't put the blood on us. And I almost think this might have been it. What happened when Jonah hit the water? Like glass. If they weren't impressed before, that crew was impressed now. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord, his God, from the stomach of the fish. And he said, I called out of my distress to the Lord, and he answered me. I called for help from the depth of Sheol. You heard my voice. For you threw me into the deep, into the heart of the sea, and the current flowed around me. All your breakers and waves passed over me. So I said, I have been cast out of your sight. Nevertheless, I will look again toward your holy temple. So, what do you think it would be like in the stomach of a fish? What happens when something normally goes into the stomach? Huh? It gets digested, okay? You got all the stomach acid in there. That's why some people take antacids, okay, to try and take care of that. So he's in the stomach of this fish. You think the fish ate while it was 3 days before it got up there? You got a fish coming in through the stomach. He doesn't have any water. How did he get sustained? God had somewhere for him to go. God sustained him inside that stomach of that fish, which he should have been digested. Must have been a big fish. So what did Jonah think was going to happen to him after he was thrown into the sea, but before the fish swallowed him? Yeah. I deserve it. I tried to run away from the God. I didn't do what he told me to do. I'm his prophet, and I didn't do it. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And he's praying to him. He said, nevertheless, I will look again towards your holy temple. He says, but I have been cast out of your sight. He thought he'd done it. He'd been swallowed by a fish, and eventually he was going to be digested. Water encompassed me to the point of death. The deep flowed around me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head. I descended to the base of the mountains. The earth with its bars was around me forever. But you have brought up my life from the pit, Lord my God. While I was fainting away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you into your holy temple. Those who are followers of worthless idols abandon their faithfulness. But I will sacrifice to you with a voice of thanksgiving. That which I have vowed I will pay. Salvation is from the Lord. Then the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah up onto the dry land. So what was his response to being swallowed by the fish? Did he curse God? No, he thanked God. Very, 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 very heartfelt and how he felt about God. And he knew God's holy. I deserved it. So what's God's response to Jonah's prayer? He sent him on his next leg, so to speak, of his mission. He had the fish throw him up on the land, which I imagine he took and rinsed off after he got there. That would have been the first thing I would have done. But it's a journey, but he's got to go to Nineveh, and he knows he's going to go to Nineveh. And now he's committed to go to Nineveh. So when is our break? When is our break? I've been talking for 45 minutes. I think I'm ready for a break. We'll go till when do you bring everybody back in here?
Not till the very end at 8:20.
At the end? Yep. Okay, so we'll take 15 minutes-ish. Somewhere around 7:30, 25 to 8, we'll get back together. There's snacks out there. How about now? Now you got me on. You really have me on. Can they hear me out there in the foyer? Huh?
What'd you say?
I said, can they hear me out there in the foyer?
Oh, the what, to come back in?
Yeah.
Try again.
Y'all come in. All y'all.
Y'all come.
I guess I wore everybody down. I know.
Well, they're moving, but
They're-
they're not coming.
Well, I let them go, but I remember we used to go out there and flash the lights on and off. That works sometimes. So what do you think of this so far? Learn something new?
Oh, yeah, good information.
That before information was really good to know to really understand.
Yeah, you know, because we always, they always have the story of Jonah when you're a kid. I mean, with our kids, we read the story about Jonah and like that, and he really didn't have, as you said, the backstory. You didn't have why he absolutely cringed at the thought of going to help those people in a situation. And it's interesting you see the way Jonah is too. Okay, what does Jonah act like when he's inside the fish? He's scared, but how is his demeanor, to lack of a better word, what's his demeanor towards God when he's in the fish?
He's repentant.
Yeah, he's repentant, but he worships God. God, I love you. I understand who you are, the master of everything. I want to draw close to you, something like that. What about when he's outside of the fish? Because inside the fish, it's bad. What about outside the fish?
Maybe I can get away with this.
Yeah, God, if you ask me, well, maybe I'll do it. This may not be a good thing. So, how does that align to us? When we're really in a tough situation, things are really going bad, is that when you pray more and talk more to God? And when things are going fine?
The phrase, there's never an atheist in a foxhole,
Yeah.
kind of says it all.
When you're facing your mortality,
Any kind of danger.
and the more severe it is, the more sometimes you draw closer. Because you figured out, I know I can't do this myself. And I'm sure while he was inside that fish, he said, I don't know how he's going to work this out, but I know I got to rely on him because nobody's ever been inside of a fish and survived it, especially for 3 days.
Yeah, I think an analogy I've heard from people, and then I finally experienced it, and they were right. If you are getting ready to have some kind of surgery that's a little tricky or something, there's a point where you just got to give it up. You can't worry. You can't. There's nothing you can do. So you have to literally. If you don't give it up at that time, you're just going to churn all the way through it.
You are.
You can't do that.
Your faith grows stronger the more you realize you can't do it yourself.
I can do a lot of things, but I can't do this.
Yeah. And says Jonah's just human, like we all are. That's just part of who we are. So you'll see, right now, Jonah's, I would call, very malleable. Very, he can be shaped by God to do whatever he needs to do while he's inside his stomach. But He's now gotten outside of his stomach, and he's okay. Both hands are here, both feet are here, I can still see. I don't think I want to smell anymore. Yeah, he probably needed a shower.
You don't know what that fish had eaten before you followed him.
You don't want to know, even if you did know.
I'm that bad.
But this is, he went from being someone who is running away to Tarshish to someone who has certainly embraced God and given thanks to him for all the things that he's done, and he's in a horrible situation. So, we're going to pick up again in chapter 3. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and proclaim it to the proclamation which I am going to tell you." What do you think is going through Jonah's mind at this time? Oh, I thought you forgot. You know, it's like, you still want me to go? So Jonah got up, went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly large city, a 3 days' walk. Then Jonah began to go through the city 1 day's walk, and he cried out and said, 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. What does it mean by a 3 days walk?
You're looking for a distance, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be 15, 18 miles a day.
Let's say you walk 3 miles an hour, right? In 8 hours, you'd be 25 miles. So this city is about maybe 75, 100 miles as far as walking. So like I said, it was the capital of the Assyrian Empire. It's a huge city. Why didn't he resist it this time?
Tried that once.
Been there, done that, huh? Of course, he's also, I think, still, if you got thrown up out of a fish and you survived, you're probably going to be pliable, right? You want me to go there? I'm going. What do you think is going through Jonah's mind as he walks the streets of Nineveh proclaiming a message from God? He's a prophet. What did Jesus say happened to a lot of the prophets? Not good things.
They were killed, tortured.
Killed, tortured, jailed. Okay. One that comes to mind is Jeremiah. What did they do to Jeremiah? Jeremiah told the people of Israel, you got to repent. Things are going to go bad for you. You've got to turn things around. What did they do to him? They threw him in a well. They left him in that well. Okay. They jailed him in a well. Okay. So if your own people do that, and supposedly they're God's people, what do you think the people of Nineveh might do? It'd be like going to the positively worst part of town and telling everybody there, you guys are a bunch of rotten people. Bad idea, you know? But Jonah went through it. He went and did it. Walking around telling them, all those people, hey, 40 more days, Nineveh will be overthrown. Overthrown meaning you're not going to be a city anymore. You're going to be destroyed. You think they knew who Jonah was? How is it they didn't do anything to him? We don't know. He was untouched. Now, certainly part of that is God sent him there. God was going to protect him. And the people, here's this crazy guy walking around here that in 40 days we're going to be overthrown.
Right? They didn't do anything. They know he's crazy.
Yeah, well, they may have said that. They said, the guy's nuts.
So they said, oh, he's crazy.
Yeah, leave him alone.
Yeah.
He said he was in a fish. Who believes that? Then the people of Nineveh believed in God, and they called a fast and put on sackcloth, from the greatest to the least of them. When the word reached the king of Nineveh, he got up from his throne, removed his robe from himself, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat on the dust. And he issued a proclamation, and it said, in Nineveh, by the decree of the king and his nobles, no person, animal, herd, or flock is to taste anything. We are not to eat or drink water, but every person and animal must be covered with sackcloth. And the people are to call on God vehemently, and they are to turn each one from his evil way and from the violence which is in their hands. Who knows? God may turn and relent and turn from his burning anger so that we will not perish. I'm going to stop right there. What do you think it looked like in that town? All right, well, here's my dog. He's in sackcloth. I mean, everything's in sackcloth. Your pet cat, your sheep, your cattle, your goats.
Animals like it.
Well, if it was cold, they'd like it. But what's everybody doing?
Tell them what the Lord said. So it seems as if their father's going along with it.
They seem to know what's going on, and they didn't say the people of Nineveh believed in the gods. They knew who Jonah was. And they knew who he represented. They knew he represented the Jewish God, who the Jews say is the one and only true God. So, when, huh? No, we don't know. I'd have to do some looking into it, but I'm not sure who it was at this particular time that was the king. But like I said, this particular empire is now, it's in its decline. And I don't know how far away it is where Nebuchadnezzar comes in and takes. Do you happen to know off the top of your head, Paul? Because you got the Babylonian kingdom from the time that they took the Jews up into Babylon in 70 years. And then you have another empire comes in, which is the Medes and the Persians. And the Medes were the ones who conquered the Assyrians, and the Persians were the ones who conquered the Babylonians. So that was kind of at the same time.
I just wondered, how far it might have been from the time of Hezekiah and Isaiah. Where they might have,
I could probably do some research, but I don't know off the top of my head as far as how far that was. You could probably go back and look at, let's see. Ahaz is a time hack for the Jews, and Hezekiah is another time hack for the Jews.
Jonah is about 785 BC.
Jonah's about 785. And when was Hezekiah king?
715 to 686 BC.
Really? That doesn't make any sense. I would have thought Jonah would have been after that, because Sennacherib and Sargon and Tiglath-Pileser would not have done this. We may look around some more. Okay, so.
Question about Daniel.
Huh?
Questions about the difference between there and Daniel, right? And Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel 605 for Nebuchadnezzar. So that's another 100 years till then. 200 from Jonah at Jonah's.
Yeah, the rise of the Babylonian Empire was really under Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a book that takes it in chronology with all the books that are written about that. I'll look that up. Anyway, but you've got all these people, and it's interesting to me, they knew what to do. Isn't this the way the Jews went? What did David do when he wanted his son, his first son from Bathsheba, to live? Exactly this. So moving on, when God saw their deeds, that they turned from their evil way, then God relented of the disaster which he had declared he would bring on them. So he did not do it. So how did the inhabitants respond? They didn't shoot the messenger. Okay. You know, there's that old thing that said messengers get paid in silver. It's silver coin if it's good news. If it's not, it's melted down and poured down their throat. So you don't want to give bad news. Well, he was giving them bad news, but they responded to it, and they responded in a way that was a godly way. And a known godly way, evidently well enough that they did it like someone who knew the Lord would do it. So in 4. But it greatly displeased Jonah. So he's gone from getting vomited out of the fish now, and he's got a little bit of an attitude again. And he became angry. Then he prayed to the Lord and said, "Please, Lord, was this not what I said when I was still in my own country? Therefore, in anticipation of this, I fled to Tarshish, since I knew that you were a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abundant in mercy, and one who relents of disaster. So now, Lord, please take my life from me, for death is better for me than life." But the Lord said, "Do you have a good reason to be angry?" So what was the real reason that he decided to flee from God? He wasn't afraid of Nineveh. He wasn't afraid of the people. This is where we find out the real reason he ran away. He wanted everybody in Nineveh to die. He hated them. And he was afraid that if he told them, that God would be merciful. And he didn't want them to be merciful. He wanted them to annihilate them. So that's the reason. He wasn't afraid. He wanted them to die. So what does Jonah pray for? How's his prayer changed from when he was in the stomach? Isn't it kind of, kill me, just kill me now?
He said, "Please, Lord." He said, "Was this not what I said when I was still in my own country?" Therefore, in anticipation of that happening, if they turn, he didn't want that to happen.
He didn't want that to happen.
He wanted them to stay in their mess.
He said, they're all going to stay alive. Where's the justice in the world? Just take me out of it. Just kill me now. I mean, that's kind of going from being grateful to being, I just can't take it anymore. Things couldn't be any worse. Yeah, he's throwing a pity party for himself.
But that's God's nature.
It is his nature. I mean, when Peter, when he wrote, he said God is love. He didn't say God is loving. He said God is love. You know, you have a lot of attributes. He's merciful. He's great. He offers grace. He's patient, but not about love. He is love. And I use this in my sermon about prayers answered. How does he answer this guy, Jonah's prayer?
He lets him stew on it for a long time, really. He doesn't answer what he wants.
He doesn't kill him. He says, why are you angry? What did I do to you? Why are you so angry that everybody hasn't been killed? I don't think Jonah had an answer. Then Jonah left the city and sat down east of it. So it's like, okay, if you're going to do that, let me go up on this hill. There he made a shelter for himself and sat under it in the shade until he could see what would happen in the city. So the Lord God designated a plant, and it grew over Jonah to be shade over his head, to relieve him of discomfort. And Jonah enjoyed the plant. But God designed a worm when dawn came the next day, and it attacked the plant, and it withered. And when the sun came up, God designed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head so that he became faint. And he begged with all his soul, saying, death is better to me than life. Oh, miserable me. Why do you think he's staying around the city? He's already delivered the message.
Maybe they'll go back to their old ways.
Yeah. Maybe they'll flip and God will destroy them, and I've got a ringside seat to watch it all. How would you describe Jonah's personality? These people, you can understand, this would have been the last group he ever would have forgiven. To me, he has highs and he has lows. He doesn't have a midpoint for his personality. He's just either way up here or way down here. Have any people that you know that are like that? They move back and forth between those two personalities. It's hard. Again, he's back into it. Death is better than life. What's God trying to teach him? What are you trying to teach him with the plant? God has mercy on who he has mercy, and he doesn't have mercy on those who he doesn't have mercies. It's not where you earn it one way or another. The plant gave him shade, gave him shelter. When the plant went away, well, it got a scorching hot wind from the east, and Jonah's, I don't know if he had water up there or not, but he begged to die. In other words, I feel so bad, it's so hot, this is so terrible. And God says, do you understand what I'm trying to teach you? None of us gets what we deserve. If we did, we'd all be lost. Yeah, they deserved to die as a city. But God was merciful because that's part of who he is. But God said to Jonah, do you have a good reason to be angry about the plant? And he said, I have good reason to be angry, even to the point of death. Then the Lord said, you had compassion on the plant, for which you did not work, and which you did not cause to grow, which came up overnight and perished overnight. Should I not also have compassion on Nineveh, the great city in which there are more than 120,000 people who do not know the difference between the right hand and the left, as well as many animals. So what's the point he's making with Jonah and the plant? You went up there for what reason? Why did he go up on that hill and watch the city? Hoping they would fail. Did he deserve the plant? No. God had mercy on him. He didn't earn it. Is there anything that Jonah did that warranted the plant going away? Not really. But God was trying to show him, I'll have mercy on who I have mercy on, and I'll have no mercy on those I won't. You don't earn it. He also makes a point at the end there. How can I hold them accountable for what they know not to be righteous, what they know not to be the right thing? Why did Christ come? What was one of the big things he did before he died?
Testify to the truth.
And that did what?
Sorry?
And that did what?
Well, that testifying to the truth is delivering the message.
How had the Pharisees and the scribes done as far as bringing the people closer to God? They'd done terrible. They didn't know the right thing to do versus the wrong thing to do, because they had just muddied up the water so much with, I remember what they were. You've got the Talmud and the Gemara, which one is the interpretation of the law and one is the interpretation of the interpretation. They had muddied things so far, so badly, that the people didn't know what was right and what was wrong. And they were confused. So some of them just gave up. I can't draw close to God. And I think that's the little point I'm making here, is to say, these aren't godly people. Even godly people repented. They believed in me. They knew my power. I'm sure even over in that area, they heard about how this God, the God of the Hebrews, brought them out of Egypt with a pillar of fire at night and a pillar of smoke in the day, how he parted the Red Sea, how he kept them shod and clothes for 40 years with the same clothes, how he fed them in the desert. All these stories about the Hebrew God. That was probably about as much as they did, because how would they learn about that? They captured a bunch of them and made them slaves. And they probably talked to them about their God. So they learned about it because of what they had done to take over other people. So the point he's making here is to say, they don't know the right hand from the left. They don't know what I want them to do. But they knew what to do when they were faced with destruction. And they didn't get angry about it. They repented. Even the king repented. He had everybody repent. Why did he have compassion on them? Because they didn't know. So in Matthew, this is where the scribes and the Pharisees are trying to trick Christ. Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. In other words, do one of your magic tricks. We'd love to see them. Heal somebody who's blind or make somebody who's lame walk. But he answered and said to them, an evil and adulterous generation craves a sign. And so, no sign will be given except the sign of Jonah the prophet. For just as Jonah was in the stomach of the sea monster, or fish, for 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. The men of Nineveh will stand up with this generation at the judgment and will condemn it because they repented at the preaching of Jonah. And behold, something greater than Jonah is here. What's the sign of Jonah he speaks of?
About the resurrection, but Jonah was in this fish for 3 days. Christ was in the tomb for 3 days.
Yeah, they were 3 days inside what could be considered death. 5 minutes? Okay. Notice what Christ says here to them. And like I said, this is going to stick in them. The people of Nineveh will sit in judgment of you. Imagine how that hit them. The insult that they'd taken right there, I think they're coming in. So I didn't get to the point that I wanted to get to, but thanks for your attention. They're coming in. Thought I had till 20.
Come in and sit at your row. No balloons. No balloons. Did you guys have fun?
They won't talk. We're playing the quiet game to see who wins.
Oh, good job. They're playing the quiet game.